is that the buyer doesn't have to buy until he or she secures all of their entitlements. In this one, we don't have to sell, and they don't have to buy until all of the entitlements are secured for the property.
So in other words, we don't have to worry about the parking agreement at this point?
Okay.
Because if we never come to an agreement on it, then we don't have to say anything about it.
Okay. Fair.
Right, and your discussion will be your text amendment and whether you, what you end up approving, if you approve the text amendment for the parking standards.
Even the board, I think that's the concern.
All the concerns.
Recognize
So wait a minute, so you do all this work knowing that the red flag is the parking and the amount, the units and the number of units, and we still carry on this conversation knowing that we're about to hit a wall? Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean we're gonna hit a wall, but this is gonna be,
I think you should hear the presentation next week on the text amendment proposal.
okay.
Okay.
So right now, are we trying to schedule a public hearing or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Up here for these two items here, development agreement.
Do I need to make a motion, or do we just agree?
When do we have a good date? You got a good date?
I think if this calendar generally holds, I think October 6th looks pretty good. You have no quasi-judicial hearings scheduled for that night. You tentatively for the 20th at this stage.
When's the volleyball building coming?
Says tentatively October 20th.
What's wrong with the first meeting in September? What we got then?
Number 1 is your text amendment.
Yeah, also September 1.
September 15th does look reasonably light, I think. So September 15th is a reasonable date too?
Yeah, I'd rather get it going. I mean, the closer we get it to now, yeah, I don't want to drag on anymore. I want to get it going.
Number 15?
That we have the public hearing for, is there a case number or anything?
Nope. For the economic development agreement, purchase agreement with Cobblestone.
So moved.
On
On
what date?
September 15th.
September
And I
15th?
second that.
Bill seconded it.
There
I
are,
seconded it.
and may I,
I second.
and before a vote, Dave's going to explain what your public hearings are going to be about. Go ahead, Dave.
So you're going to have multiple public hearings on that night. You're going to designate the land that the town owns for economic development purposes, and that will be a public hearing and a vote. There will be a public hearing on the appropriation of funds for economic development purposes. That may come actually after the development agreement. And then there's going to be a hearing on the economic development agreement and purchase agreement. But each one of those, they can be combined in terms of how the public discusses it with us, but we'll notice all of them separately, and then we will vote on them separately.
So 4 public hearings for
I got
those.
3.
Yeah, essentially.
Fit economic development and purchase agreement, but those are separate hearings. We can hear it together, but we vote separately.
Your attorney is going to take a look at that. The purchase agreement is authorized by the development agreement. If it were just the purchase agreement, I would have a public hearing on that. We would have to have one. Whether we need to have 2 separate votes, I'll tell you that night.
Gotcha.
So, 3.5. We will notice all of these matters, though. That's on the staff.
I got a motion second, any further discussion? Not hearing any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Motion passed. We're going to some public hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Monthly financial update, that sounds like something Andy would be.
I have a question though. Why did he bring his cardboard display? Was that
If
for
you
us?
want to take a look at it.
Oh, we have it online. Okay.
Seen it.
You never know. I got the rest of the car too, so. See you later. Thank you again. Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Good to see you all this evening. Tonight, I'll be giving you an update on our financial situation. This is the first of our monthly meetings. We'll be holding these over at least the next year, talk about where we are in terms of our revenues and our expenditures. So the monthly report was in the packet. It was delivered, part of your agenda. I'll give you a moment to find that in your packet. But what I'll be showing on the screen essentially mirrors what you have in that packet. So the report is separated into 3 sections. I think we're up to 8 pages now, so tried to color code it to make it a little bit easier so you know where you are in that report. So the blue headings are from the general fund. So the general fund is most of your operating expenditures. That's where the day-to-day activities of the town are budgeted. The second fund is the capital projects fund, and those are the large capital projects are reflected in that fund. And then finally, the third section of the report is supplementary information. So we're going to start with the first section, which is the general fund. It's still very early in the fiscal year, and as we've talked over the past few months, we do have a little bit of a delay in when we get to receive revenue that's available in a certain month. So some of these charts may not be very helpful at this time, but as we go through the fiscal year, I think these will be a little bit more informative. This is a good example of one of those charts that doesn't tell us a whole lot right now because we don't have a lot of revenue that's coming in July. And that's not unexpected.
I have a clarifying question. Why is there a delay in the taxes that we get, or the revenue that we get?
The best example of that is going to be when we get to the sales tax. Okay, can I address that when we get to that one? And I think that maybe it will be
Not on the property tax?
property tax is generally not a delay.
Okay.
But again, we might be able to address that when you see the chart. It may make more sense.
Sounds good.
Okay. And if I don't address that when we get there, please remind me. So general fund revenues. Although there's not much in right now, that's where we expect to be. We operate the first few months of the fiscal year basically on reserves. What you see here should look familiar to you in that bottom left-hand corner. It comes right off of our old financial report, the one you've been getting for a few years now. It's the same information. It's cut and pasted into that bottom left corner. And then it's turned into a graphic picture. Some of us are numbers people and some of us are not. We like to see things visually. So that chart above it takes that exact same data from the table and puts it into a visual perspective. So the blue bars, whenever they start showing up, those blue bars will represent the revenue actually received as a percent of what's budgeted, okay? The green bar going across says this is our benchmark. This is the percentage of the way we are through the fiscal year. So at the end of July, we were 8% of the way through the fiscal year. But you can see our revenues are not at 8%. Again, not unexpected. We do the same thing here on the expenditure side. This one has a little bit more data because we are spending money. We're paying employees. We're buying needed equipment and supplies. Again, the chart in the bottom left should look familiar. Comes right off of this old report. It's a cut and a paste right into that page. And then we turned it into the graphic form.
Amy, can I just clarify? This is just for July?
That's correct.
Okay.
This is as of the end of July.
Okay,
But thank you, because things are going to get a little more confusing as we get into the other charts. But for this particular page, especially, this is just through July 31st.
Perfect, thank you.
So what we see here from this chart is that most departments are right where we expect them to be. Nobody has gone out and bought any large expenditures that are outside of the norm. We do see the police department and the planning department are a little bit above that benchmark. Again, that's not unexpected. The police department has a few contracts for communications, 911, that kind of thing with our partner agencies that we pay up front, either for the year or for the quarter. So again, knowing what we know about police operations, there's nothing unusual there.
They're supposed to be buying 2 or 4 new cars this year.
Yes, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get further into this. All right, so that's kind of the quick snapshot. It's the old information just put into a graphic form to make it a little more user-friendly. All right, the next page is where we start. Really, the next 2 pages are where we go into a little bit more detail about 4 of the 5 largest sources of revenue for the town. Okay? All 4 of these revenues, the way that they're presented is similar. So let's spend just a moment kind of walking through how these charts are laid out. In the bottom left of the screen, I have on the TVs right now, is a year-to-date cumulative. That chart should also look familiar. We have used that kind of chart several times over the last few years during our budget presentations. So what that chart shows is how the funds from that revenue source accumulate over time. So in July, those are the receipts from July. In August, those are the receipts from July plus August. September is July plus August plus September. Does that make sense?
That's all cumulative.
Okay? Yeah, so by the time you get to June, that's the total revenues that we received that fiscal year. Now, what's new is the chart up above. What this shows is year-over-year revenues for each month. So, for example, July, we see the revenues that came in fiscal year 18, 19, 20, and then this July just passed in yellow. What we've done is taken the current fiscal year and made it yellow so that it stands out a little bit more, since that's the one we're really trying to track very closely this year. The green bar going across is a projection based on the amount we budgeted for this fiscal year. Okay? It says, well, if we're going to get this amount of money over the year that we budgeted, if we're going to hit our budget target, based on prior year expenditure, this is how we expect those funds to come in if things are consistent with what's happened in the past. Okay? So it gives you that benchmark to check against how things are coming in. So for July, we see we're right about where we expect to be. And when I go back into my more detailed spreadsheets, it's about 3% of our levy comes in July. So nothing unexpected happening here. 3% isn't very much of that pie. As you can also tell from this chart, most of our funds come in November. That's when the cash comes in from the property tax. November tends to be the month, apparently, that most of the mortgage companies make their payments. Yeah, probably. Yeah. And then October, December, also fairly big months as well. So we still have a few more months to go, kind of addressing this lag issue and the delay. While there's not really a huge delay here in terms of when the money is due to us and when we receive it, it's not a delay in that sense, like some of the other revenues. In this, it's just a delay in when they're due and when people make payment. Okay, questions about this one? Okay. Now, a minute ago, I mentioned we're looking at 4 of the 5 largest revenues. The one that's not included is the solid waste fee. That's our 3rd largest source of revenue. The reason it's not included with its own chart is because it would look almost identical to this one, because solid waste fees are now collected on the property tax bill. Okay, so we're going to move on. The other method that property tax are collected, a few years ago we went to that tax and tag. So now when you put in your renewal to get your license plate, you also pay your property tax on your vehicle at the same time. So on a totally different schedule than the property taxes for land and buildings. So what we see here is the same things. The bottom left shows you that year-to-date cumulative for the last 3 years. And then the chart up above is the year-over-year comparisons for each month. So let's ignore the yellow for just a moment. If you look at this, July through February, almost every month, those blue bars, they go up and up. And the next month, it's going up, 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 right? From the light blue to the darker blue. And then we hit March. It goes up and then down. April, same thing. May. That's where we start to see that impact from the COVID-19 closures. So we can see that that did have an impact on our receipts from property tax related to motor vehicles. Now, what the state legislature did is they gave a grace period. If you recall, they gave a grace period. People who have auto tag renewals between March and July have a 6-month grace period to renew.
I didn't know that. I paid that.
Yeah. So what that means?
Secret.
Yeah. So what that means is that revenue is going to come in a little later, and so what we're expecting is that some of those dips down, right? The darkest blues from 2020. Hopefully we'll be getting those, as we go forward. And what's not in your chart, but is on this one on the screen, is that lovely yellow bar. That's data that we just got on Friday. We received a transfer from DMV, so I went ahead and threw that into the chart for tonight. That shows you, yes, indeed, we are doing very well for July of 2020. So some of those deferrals are now coming in, and we're making up some of that lost ground. Okay, and we'll keep an eye on this as we go through.
Do you think we're going to have a loss of revenue from the Wake County tax collections because of evictions and foreclosures and real property? Because the government may grant people that are behind grace periods. I know there's conversations from the federal government saying that we're not going to let you lose your home during the pandemic. So if you fall behind, that means the escrow falls behind too.
Right, it is possible. I know the Wake County Tax Office, who does all the collections for us, they did advise us very early when we were in the budget process to maybe ratchet down our collection percentages just a bit to reflect their past experience in the last economic downturn.
Okay.
So we did adjust for that a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so we're going to move on to our second largest source of revenue, which is the sales tax. This is where we can address that lag issue, and I think it'll be a little bit more apparent. Again, just like the last chart, bottom left, that year-to-date cumulative, and the top chart month to month. You can see in June on this chart, we only have 2 blue bars. Okay? We don't have the information yet on our revenues in the town for June of 2020. Those bars, that represents sales, transactions that occurred in the month of June. Okay, so let's say I go to Walmart and I bought something in June. Well, Walmart then has July to turn around and report that information to the state. And so it takes everybody a little bit of time for it to walk all the way through the process from where the transaction occurred to when the vendor has to remit it to the state, and then the state remits it to everybody, the counties and cities. And so that's why we have a little bit of a lag there. So we won't know what that June figure is probably for another couple of weeks. And then we won't actually see the money here until mid-August. I'm sorry, mid-September. Wrong month.
Thank you for clarifying that on the sales tax. But I still want to go back to the property tax.
Sure.
Because I'm talking about new homes.
Okay.
Maybe I didn't clarify.
Oh, I see.
On new homes,
Yes.
isn't there a lag in the property tax actually receipts that we get from that?
So property tax is, the property tax that's due is based on the valuation on January 1. So yes, there can be a little bit of a delay until you start to see some of those types of revenues.
If I had my house built in July of 2020, the valuation wouldn't happen until January 1st, 2021, and then the taxes actually get paid in October, November if I escrow, possibly.
I'm going to lean on the real estate attorney here a little bit for that, but that, I believe, is my understanding.
It's my understanding that the county does the new assessment at that time, but the valuation, I should say, the assessment, But January 1 is the date that new values come out. So for the year that the home was completed, the value that's going to be assessed against that property is going to be, in many cases, the raw land value, not the improved land value.
So there is a delay in us getting that.
Yeah.
I'm clarifying that for the public, really.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
a delay in realizing what you're seeing,
Right.
but it's a loss, if you will. It's not really a delay. That money would never be collected for that year.
That first year.
Yeah, that's right.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for clarifying that.
Sure. All right. So, so sales tax. Again, remember how we were watching those blue bars from year to year? And again, it looks pretty good, up until we get to March, and you can see there's a drop. The darkest blue bar goes down for 2020. March where receipts were down 4%. April was down 14%. May was down 5%. We'll see what June brings. Just a reminder, we did, and you can see this green bar, remember that's our forecast for this current year. You can see that green bar is below last year because we forecasted a 5% decrease in sales tax revenue in this budget year. Okay, so it gives us a little bit of a cushion, but if these current trends hold out, if we're at 5% loss like May, if that holds out, we should be okay for the year and meet our projection.
So just to clarify, do we get any money from Amazon? Like, I know there's a lot of online orders. That tax that's on there, do we get a portion of that tax in Rolesville?
We should be, because that is the state law now, that it applies to the online retailers, goes into the state, who then transmits it to counties and cities. Yeah. Yeah, it used to be self-reported years ago on your income tax. I don't know how well that was, but
The state collects it and gives a portion to
That's
each
a portion.
municipality.
yeah.
Well, based upon point of sale, I think. Is it? I think-
Well, each cent of the sales tax is different. Some are based on point of sale, some are based on population, and then some have special adjustment factors and
We will see a benefit back to Wake County if Wake County
certain,
participates more.
yes.
And I said Amazon, it could be any online, but I was using them
Absolutely.
as an example.
Yep.
Good.
Okay. All right. So the last one we look at in the general fund is our fifth largest revenue, which is utility sales tax. And this is a sales tax on electricity, natural gas, telecommunications. You probably see this if you looked at your electric bill, you'd see a sales tax. That's this utility sales tax. You can see it's over the years. You look at that year-to-date cumulative, it's been a very flat revenue source for the town. And it has a very long delay. So we won't know fourth quarter of 2020 fiscal year until mid-September. So it takes a good 3 months before we even know what that amount is or see the cash. That's always the last adjusting entry in the last year's financial statements. All right, so that's it for the general fund. And then we move on to our next section, which is capital projects.
I have a question for you though. Now, I know we don't collect money on business licenses anymore, correct?
Right.
But I know there's other towns that do collect money, not necessarily business license, but like, I wrote it in my notes too. So for people who open a business in their homes, there's a fee that's collected for that. Is that something that Rolesville ever looked into? I can send you a link for that. They refer to it, if they go into a building that was previously occupied, they have what's called a certificate of zoning compliance application, and there's a fee for that, right? And then there's also the home occupation permit application. Because when they go and file downtown, there's a record of it. So that could possibly be another source of income for Rolesville, because there are a lot of home business. I think the General Assembly had something to do with some of this stuff not happening.
Definitely had to do something with business permits. The home occupancy may be a different angle some municipalities are taking. So we have to look into that. I've not heard that one.
Okay, and I will say that I had this conversation with people from the chamber, with Rachel in particular, because we're trying to figure out ways of getting money, and she brought that to my attention, so.
Well, I think the manager mentioned in his message sometime in the last few weeks, one of the things our summer intern, Valencia, had worked on for us was a user fee study, looking at what other municipalities are charging. And so one of those rang some bells. I think one of those is in there, but definitely we'll write that down and add some other things to our study. We'll take a look
I
at
would
it.
just like to say that if I open up a home business, I don't want to pay it, but I understand that what it will do for your community, for your towns. So, and for Rolesville, there are a lot of home-based businesses.
When we first moved here, I sold these children's personalized books, and I had to go register with the town.
Oh, the use tax? Is it the use tax or something?
Business,
State?
if you get a business permit.
Yeah, that may have been the
That-
business
that's- We
license.
no longer is able to do that.
Right, the General Assembly took action a few years ago and said no more of those. Yep. So,
Well,
okay.
those two I think are workarounds, so, and I can tell you that Apex does that currently.
Okay, thank you.
All right, anyway.
Okay, Capital Projects Fund. So again, we're starting to see some familiar information here. Again, this little chart from our old, or not chart, this is a table. This one cut and paste right into here on this left-hand side of your screen. Again, that's information as of July 31st. Anytime you see those tables that look like our old report, that's as of July 31st, because that's a cash statement. What we see down below is something a little new. Interesting trends here. So what this is very similar to those other revenues that we saw before. This is a month by month of our capital development fees, the street fee and the park fee that we collect with new permits. Okay, because unlike some of our other revenue sources, this is totally dependent on who walks in the door with a permit and how many people do that. It fluctuates wildly from month to month and from year to year. You can see, in general, the spring is some years, a pretty good time where we get some good revenue from these capital fees. This is also a good indicator of what our economic conditions are in the town in terms of number of permits that are coming through. I know that's one of our concerns as well in this coming year, that if the economy's bad, we may not have as many new houses going in and not as many permits coming through. And so these charts will help us track that as we go through the year. So you can see we've got 1 month of data from this current fiscal year, that's July's, and July's is above that benchmark. Now, in this case, that benchmark's just a flat line. It's our budget for the year spread over 12 months. That's all that is. Because it fluctuates so wildly, it's very difficult to predict. But we can see July came in very well over that month benchmark.
Oh, wait, what does street fees mean again?
That's the street impact fee for
Okay,
new
gotcha.
development.
Okay. And the park fees.
I'm sorry?
Are they the same amount?
They're both 3,200 at this time. Yes. Or each 3,200, I guess.
And that's the
Way to
same
say
with the
that.
park fees?
I'm sorry?
And is that the same with the park fees?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so also with our capital projects fund, this is an opportunity to use this report to give you all a little bit of an update on where we are with some of our significant capital projects. So this chart just shows the budget versus how much is actually spent, so you can get an idea of how much is remaining and how far progress is on some of these based on the amount spent. A lot of work goes in up front with engineering and preparation, so it's kind of that tail end where the construction costs really start bringing those bars up. So you can see Main Street Vision Plan, East Young Street Sidewalk. Those aren't just the annual numbers for what we've spent the current fiscal year, because those are multi-year projects. That's the project, the lifetime of that project for those particular two. And then down below is just a written update, very brief, on where we are with these projects.
There's something like bowling and street improvement would be on there.
So Not in the way the budget is set up currently. All of our resurfacing and the POW bill funds are still in the general fund right now. That's something we can consider, as we move along, that maybe we want to start moving some of those resurfacing type projects into the capital projects. Yeah, for right now, I left this purely capital projects, but yes, that's one of those areas it's a capital project, but it's in the general fund. So if there's an interest on adding that kind of thing in here, we can certainly, if you have any, special projects we want to add, we can certainly do that. So I won't go through all those tonight. You can read those. The last section is supplementary information. So this one's a new one, cash and investments. The table, again, is same thing we've had before, came right over here on the top right of your old report. And I took that and now and put it into a chart form to make it a little easier to understand or to follow, and maybe learn something about some trends. So the chart with the 3 blue bars shows general fund cash. Okay, that's the cash the town has on hand to be able to operate. Just like I said at the very beginning, in July, we don't have a lot of revenue coming in. We're operating off of those reserves for the first few months of the year. If you remember that property tax chart we saw, remember how it went way up when the mortgage companies made their payments? That's where you see, it's very consistent, these blue bars, they all jump up from October to November, because that's where we see that infusion of cash coming into the town's accounts. And then as the year goes on, it drops off as we spend that out. This chart can be helpful as we go through the year. The yellow dot shows where we are right now, or July 31st, where we were. If we start to see that yellow drop far below the blue lines, then we know maybe we have a cash flow issue going on. And why is it happening? Now, sometimes we know why that cash flow might be happening. It could be that we're going to transfer some money over to buy some land for a public works facility, or we're about to put cash out as our 20% match on our Main Street Vision Plan, right? Sometimes we know why that's happening, and that's okay. But if it's dropping unexpectedly, it's another indicator for us to say, this is something that we need to take a look at.
So the graph just shows general fund, but the numbers on the left-hand side shows all.
That's correct. And the reason I left the other ones out, because they're capital projects, and just like how I talked about how the street fees and the park fees, they're all over the board when they come in and how much. Capital projects can really kind of muddy this water a little bit, because you might have a lot coming in and then you have a lot going out, and it just makes the lines jump around. You don't see that nice consistency like you do with just the general fund.
Utility fund is flat.
Well, it grows for a little bit of interest every month, but yes, otherwise pretty much flat. Yes. All right, the next section is something we talked about during the budget process, which is our staggered program implementation, the fancy way of saying our go, no-go list. So as a staff, we sat down, we talked through what the new programs were and positions in the budget, and started breaking those out by quarter. As we went through that conversation, one of the things we realized was that even though something might be in the first quarter that we get started, it may have budgetary impacts that go throughout the year. Or maybe it's a small cost at the beginning to get started now. Again, land for a public works facility is a good example of this. We may be spending money now for a feasibility study, but the actual land purchase wouldn't come until a few quarters later. So, and I didn't put all the breakouts here, but did show that you can see each of these programs have different impacts as they go through the year, and different thoughts of when they would, some of the costs would come
What
through.
does the next mean?
What does the next
No,
mean?
the X.
Oh, the X. It means it has a fiscal impact in that quarter. So the police building expansion, for example, already underway, also has a lease associated with it. Well, there's a lease cost all 4 quarters.
Okay.
Okay.
The total that included the $93,993.
It did. That included the additional lease cost.
The cost and the cost to construct it to,
That's correct. Yep. Yeah. So when we sat down and looked at what the quarter by quarter costs were using this layout we had proposed, it really ended up being fairly equal. Not entirely, but pretty close to having all the costs spread out throughout the fiscal year. The fourth quarter is the most difficult, and you can see there's not much there because so many of these projects take lead time to get going that there's not a whole lot that made sense to delay entirely until the fourth quarter.
I have a question. The customer service specialist,
Mm-hmm.
is that the salary and is that full-time, part-time?
That's a salary and benefits,
Right.
so it includes all the health insurance, everything, for a full-time position.
Okay. How much do benefits average?
So a rule of thumb is when you take salaries and add 30%, generally to cover the cost of
Gotcha.
benefits. All right. The next section, also familiar, was the back page of the other report. Same thing, nothing new here, just administrative transfers approved by the manager during the previous month, and then any transfers or amendments that you all approved in your meetings. Right now, the only thing on here was our rollovers, the projects that weren't finished last year that you reappropriated at the first meeting in July.
All right, I have a question. I'm sorry, to go back to
Yep.
quarter two.
Okay,
With the PT evidence technician, that's for the police department?
correct.
Is that, and that's part-time, right? So workstation replacements, that didn't take place already?
No, that's the laptops or workstations for the staff. That was one of those that we elected to delay until October to try to make it through until we see how our revenues are coming in. I know that it's going to be a tough one. We have some staff who are using computers who are, going on about 4 years old. So we're going to have to hit that pretty quickly. And laptops, as we talked about with the AV equipment a few minutes ago, laptops have a very long lag time to get in. But I think we'll still be in pretty good shape if we can get that order placed at the beginning of the quarter. We'll still be able to get through.
Okay, so when you say part-time evidence technician, I'm just a little curious because this is coming with some type of a skill set, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So when you say part-time, what is that, 20 hours a week?
So this particular position is, they are advertising this as a true part-time, not a part-time permanent in terms of meaning 20 hours a week in benefits, but it's a part-time of up to 18 hours a week with no benefits in terms of health
The
insurance.
salary would be $26,239.
That's the total budget.
That's the budget, yes, for that.
It'd be more equivalent to above 60 to 70 for full-time annual.
I'm sorry, so if it's full-time annual, why is it part-time here?
That's what we budgeted.
That's for the rest of the.
We budgeted 26,000, which is equivalent to a part-time position. If it had been a full-time, the equivalent salary would have been 70,000 or so. Does that make
So what
sense?
you're saying here is the budget.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does, but I'm like, how are you gonna get a quality person with experience to do the 26?
He anticipates a few folks that have recently retired that will be interested in some part-time work to get established. Police folks that have good experience in this.
Okay.
And the 26 is also 9 months of the year, not a full annualized.
Amy,
And who put that 26 in there? That's how you guys came up with, how'd you come up with that number?
It's based on the job description for that position and then going out and seeing what an equivalent position is in other jurisdictions.
And that's comparable? Okay, I'm sorry. All right, Jackie, I'm sorry, go ahead.
now, I see police vehicle fleet replacement. Looks like this 238,560, that's for 4 cars. and of course, all the equipment that comes with them, which is expensive. But all in one quarter, wouldn't it be smart to buy like one a quarter or like that or
You have to order them,
It takes a while.
so you have to order them. And so he's gonna have to order these by October 1st, and we won't get them until April.
So wait a second, so he's ordering by
State
October.
bid, so that's why you have to order in that kind of situation.
okay, I was just trying to figure out cash flow.
They don't take half day.
Now, I have been, well, and I have been seeing some municipalities start to lease their vehicles due to low interest. Now, I'm not saying we didn't talk about that, and I don't want to, but that's what they're doing when they have a larger fleet.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we're paying cash for 4 vehicles.
But I remember seeing this in the budget, you know, when we did this a couple of years ago for their cars, like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm just wondering why it's taking place so late in the quarter. Because I remember when we looked at the budget, they said it's between 60 and 75,000 miles, and they pushed theirs up to 75,000. I remember reading that.
Yeah, they have them all timed, so they know they're gonna hit that when they come due, and that's when they become available from the state bid.
And it's not too out of the norm. I mean, I want to say the last couple of years, we've had at least 1 or 2 vehicles that are still finishing up, usually into April, May, June.
So they're not in a situation where they need any of these vehicles before the fourth quarter.
That's right. I'll verify that. Because I see a suspicious thing.
No, I was just-
What's
You
that?
couldn't get
I don't
them
think you can get them
now.
anyway, because they come due, so they run them on that, and that's when you have to place the order by October 1st, that's when they call for the orders. They don't do any pre-orders up to that time. All orders come in, you have to give them the order. And so even though we say we're buying Q4, reality is you're ordering and committing Q2.
And paying.
Not paying, you're ordering, you don't have to pay until you commit.
Oh,
But it's a contract.
But I just remember Chief Langston when he was going through this, and I thought it was more of a urgency than it was. I thought they had. I know they're not all due at the same time, but I thought he had expressed some urgency to it. That's why I was wondering why it was at the end of the quarter.
Well, like Amy said, he knows how to stagger them, so so they may come in, let's say, April, May next year, but they may not need them till July still. So they've got them down that they're rolling on their mileage pretty close.
no bulk discounts, eh? Just
So
asking.
my question to you all, was this helpful? A. B, would you continue like to see this report? And C, we don't need to spend as much time in the future.
I was going to say, this is very helpful,
Right.
but
Quarterly,
I don't think we need it monthly. I think we need it quarterly unless there's a problem and a shortfall, something
agree.
like that. But we don't need this every month.
I mean, if we
I
get
wouldn't
it in our
mind seeing it
report, I
every
don't
month.
care.
You don't
But
have to
I mean,
talk about it.
you know, we want the report.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Where we can,
Review
now
it.
that you told us, we know how to interpret it ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
And we
yes.
can always pick up the
So
phone
you're
and
good
call.
with the report and FYI monthly.
Yeah,
And then if we see something urgent, we pull it out. And then if we want to revisit quarterly, we can.
Right.
And then
That-
Amy talks a little
that's
faster
my-
during her
that wish.
presentation.
Sorry. Well, I did want to spend a lot of time tonight because I want you to understand the layout, and that way it does make it easier for your future
But let her
viewing.
speak a little
Sorry.
faster, please. Like,
I've been told I speak too fast
You were
too, so I
very
want to
thorough,
avoid
though.
that.
Thank you very much for that.
Like when you get the new bills in the mail and they give you the page to explain how to read the
Yeah.
bill.
Sorry.
She had to do that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So,
Thank you.
and as you think about it, if you see anything that makes us improve this, please let us know. That's what we want. It's good
I thought it was
information.
very helpful.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Great.
I see your bowling drive in there too.
I saw that.
So that's good because that street, woof,
It's dirt right now, right?
Yep, it's stone and
they,
dirt.
they hit some problems over there, right? Like a
Street
water
to
table or
nowhere.
something?
Except for that house.
okay.
Well, this week Raleigh Utility went out to check and make sure there weren't water. I had not heard the result of that, but I stumbled upon those guys yesterday, and we've asked for that for 2 months. So they finally got out there this week to check on that. But the ditches are flowing. If we get a stretch with no rain, it should get dry, and then we can get the asphalt. And we'll let the mayor ribbon cut and drive the first drive on it.
My gosh. You know what, Kelly, I do have a question for you, or Amy, with the ADA. I know that was for this building here, but have we ever considered something like that for the parks? You know, like the equipment that the kids play on, there's nothing in.
Well, I would love to think about somewhere down the line doing a accessible playground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be nice because there are a lot of kids who can't really enjoy playgrounds hardly anywhere because of the lack of.
We do not have and I don't know the term correctly, but there is new playground that are much more accessible. But they're expensive, but if you want us to start thinking about that, we could start thinking about that sometime in the future.
I would really like it if we could. That would be great.
They're wonderful playgrounds.
All right, then I can even play in them. The big girl on the.
That's all we have tonight.
All right, well, thank you. Just before we break up, I do have a couple of FYI things for the board. First of all, the police, not the police, but the fire project we're working on, we have assigned, we actually, I think we got five proposals that came in. So what we're going to do is look at those proposals, and I selected Michelle to help with that. So it's going to be Michelle and Amy, the town manager, and two from the police department. Not police, I keep saying police, fire department, to kind of look at those proposals and actually do interviews. My understanding of at least three of them to come back with us with a recommendation. This thing is a long-term process. I mean, it's something that not going to happen if it does happen, it's not going to happen in 12 months. It's going to probably be 18 or more. So what I'm trying to do is get every opportunity along the way is get a commissioner kind of involved in it, so you won't be left out. So April was involved in the first time we met a few weeks ago, I think. So now we're going to get Michelle, and we'll get Paul, and Jackie's kind of involved anyway. So I may leave Jackie out, but I do want all commissioners somewhat, have firsthand information of what's going on, and I think involving each of you in there will be a good thing. I set out this one, so I'm not on the panel. I felt like it would be better to keep it smaller. 5 is a big panel for interviewing, and we got 3 from the town, including Michelle, and 2 from the fire department. So that should be moving on. We'll keep you guys updated as that move forward. And one last thing I'll mention, there's the freedom. Some people call it the Freedom Day. Some people call it Emancipation Day. That's June the 19th of next year. And you may have heard Wake County, I'm pretty sure, going to give their employees a holiday on that day next year. And Raleigh and Apex are too. The rest of the towns, talking to the mayors, either they haven't made a decision or they was going to do something else on that day. So I'm kind of thinking, how do we want to handle that? So be thinking about that as commissioners. Kind of talk to me. We may just want to discuss it one night and kind of to see what the board feels like. It would take a board approval to add a holiday to the I guess the budget next year, because we've already approved the budget up to the end of June. So we would have to kind of change that a little bit. But I think we can do that. We got you guys got the power to do that if we want to do something different. So think about that, and we'll kind of discuss that in the next few weeks and couple meetings on how you want to do that. You can get with me privately if you want to, and kind of give me ideas if you want to do that.
But what holidays are currently observed?
State holidays. So I haven't heard our state, in other words, probably would be, we've always observed state holidays, my understanding. So if the state was to do something, we probably would, automatically almost. But I wouldn't say automatically, but you guys probably wouldn't be an issue with that. But I haven't heard the state's going to move on it. But Wake County did, and like I said, a couple municipalities, and the rest of them are talking, just like I'm doing tonight. The rest of us are talking to the boards and kind of figuring out if they want to kind of do something. So
I have a clarification question, because I know that the state, if I'm not mistaken, has declared Juneteenth, or it's a proclamation that Juneteenth is not a holiday, but made a proclamation about
Right.
Juneteenth.
yeah.
Has
And I was-
Rolesville done that?
No, I was planning on doing that.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, we were going to do the proclamation, so, that was already in the plans. But this holiday thing has just kind of came up in the last few weeks, I think.
I got you.
So we would still do that anyway. The holiday, really, it's something to think about. Holiday, the employees would observe, but nobody else probably would in town, Everything else, your spouses would be working and all that kind of stuff. So we'll consider it. I think it's a thing that really shows shows the respect that we give into the day and things like that. From an employee standpoint, I'm not sure if it's as valuable as if everybody treated it as a holiday, because everybody's not off at the same time.
Right now, it's Wake County, Raleigh, and Apex. Is that what you said?
And it's just their employees, It's just their employee. One of the things I asked Kelly, and he's working on it, is kind of give us, I think all of you should know, how much a holiday costs to town, But we need to look at that, because really, it's a couple ways to look at it. It's not a lot of expense, because, you're going to pay employees anyway. It's just that that you're not being here, but it does cost the ones the essential workers, like the police department. I think we have to pay them overtime on holidays, don't we?
I'll when I give you the answer, I'll explain everything.
Yeah. So we still have to have the essential people working, but
You had to have minimum staffing.
that's right. But
When they did Martin Luther King Day, I remember that it came out first as an optional holiday.
yeah, it's a state holiday now, right?
Right, but I'm saying when
Right.
it first came out, it was like optional. Not every state celebrated it, and then those that slowly came on board made it an optional holiday.
Right.
Yeah, it still isn't.
Say that.
Yeah, it still
Yeah,
isn't.
some companies it's not, but a
Sure
lot of
is
companies
not.
are moving that way.
Yep, they do it like, let's try to test the waters a little bit,
Yeah.
reluctantly. See, like in New York, we have holidays for everything, even Yom Kippur,
Yeah.
everything. And I don't say that to play light of it, I'm just saying that every holiday that's significant in history, it seems like, you know what I mean? Every day, I'm off this month 2 days,
Yeah.
and that month 3 days. It's
Yeah. A lot of private companies that do what they call the personal holidays. So they give a group of, fixed holidays, and then you have 2 or 3 personal holidays that, you can take at any time. You can take it for these holidays you don't normally recognize, or you can take it for your birthday or different things like that. But I don't think we do any of those. We just do the state holidays. So we just follow the state leads, and but think about that, and we'll be talking about that and trying to make a decision in the next few months on which way we want to go with that. And that's all I have. The board have anything to close with?
Motion to adjourn.
I second,
I hear a
I
motion.
second, I second, third, and fourth it.
Oh,
mention the planning board candidate panel.
yeah. Thank you for reminding me of that. We did have a planning board member to retire, and I think she moved away from Rolesville. So we got a what did you say, 7 or 8?
We now have 8
We got 8. So
applications.
so Michelle is the liaison, so she's automatic. So she's got to do it. And
You have applications for them already? I would love to see it, because I just think it's important that we find somebody with some type of skill set in regards to planning.
She's all
You
in.
know.
so April's going to help you do that.
She's all
Okay.
I'm
in.
pointing.
Okay,
I'm pointing to April. She hadn't had opportunity to interview, I don't think. So
Okay.
she'll be working with you to try to come up with the replacement. I think you got 8 candidates.
when does it close out? When is the application, is there a deadline?
I'd give it another week.
Another week? Okay. Okay. That's fine. Cool.
Sounds good. Thank you for reminding me. I forgot that. I forgot to tell April, so she's So, anything else? We got everything covered? Okay, we appreciate everybody turning out tonight. I think we had a good meeting, got a lot accomplished. I was kind of looking ahead. We got some meetings coming up, and unfortunately, the way this thing is designed, we got to do what we did tonight with the Jones thing 2 more times, exactly like it, I think. I'm not sure why, we had to do, I don't know why they did 3 phases like they did that, because usually we do phases all at one time, but we got to do this 3 more times exactly like we did. So appreciate the board. You guys asked good questions and did a great job. Hope the chamber was listening and heard what we did, and we got that MOU behind us, so that was very good. So appreciate the board. Thank you. Appreciate everybody watching, and I'll adjourn this meeting for the night. I did ask for a vote.
No, you didn't.
Just a discussion. All right. I got a motion, a second. For all in favor, say aye.
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 All right. All approved. Okay. Thank you. And